Hello, Mana TV international viewers. Welcome back to one more engaging session in our series, Healthy Life the Vegan Way. I'm your host, Dr. Kalindi Bakshi. Healthy Life the Vegan Way is in collaboration with World Vegan Vision, whose mission is to empower you to be healthy, to be kind, to be vegan and human. Today, we have with us Dr. Kasubai, Moise Kasubai, who is an associate chair of medicine in an academic medical center with a passionate interest in plant-based nutrition to prevent reverse chronic medical conditions. He is also physician advisor to healthcare technology companies, and he's a great advocate of plant-based diet. Welcome, Dr. Kasubai.
Thank you, Kalindi.
So our topic of focus is going to be obesity. Overweight and obesity is a condition where there is abnormal or excessive fat accumulation, which presents a very serious health risk. A body mass index, also called BMI over 25, is considered overweight, and over 30 is obese. Based on the data obtained from CDC, the US obesity prevalence in the year of 2017 to 2018, the data was taken in those years, was 42.4%. Obesity-related conditions include heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers. These are among leading cause of death and severe medical conditions. However, these conditions can be prevented. Globally, over 4 million people die each year as a result of being overweight or obese, and it causes a big global burden on the healthcare system. So Dr. Kasubai and I are going to discuss on different, on how the causes of obesity and how to prevent, reverse, and manage this condition. So, Dr. Kasubai, let's talk about what is obesity and how does one,
Thanks, Kalindi. So, the first question we have to ask ourselves is, do we love food? I think, yes, all of us love food. The second question to ask, does food love us? And often the answer is no right now, because the food that you get in the market, in the restaurants, and sometimes at home is not really nourishing to you. So obesity is not only caused by what we eat. There's also a genetic tendency, and 70% of us have a genetic tendency to become obese. Now, this was a great evolution thing that happened to us, because years ago, when we had less amount of food available, the body used to accumulate food in the form of fat. And then when we were fasting, when we could not have access to food, we would burn this fat energy. Hence, if you go back pictures 100 years ago, even 50 years ago, majority of people were thin. Now you're seeing overweight and obesity is 2/3 of the American population has it. So it's now becoming an epidemic. It's because of the excessive food available and the type of food we're eating. Again, let me stress this very important point that it's not the caloric intake. It's not calories that are going to make you fat. It's the food that we make eating that is going to make you fat. And that's a great distinction between all the different diets like ketogenic diet, Mediterranean diet, and what we like to advocate for, which is vegan diet and plant-based diet.
Obesity, yes, it can be genetic, but mostly it is related to unhealthy lifestyle, right? Our eating habits, the timing of eating, lack of physical activity, not enough sleep. Also, like, in today's dating world, the stress itself caused like something called stress eating, right? Binge eating. All these habits have contributed significantly today to, the raising levels of obesity. That brings us to the next question, the medical effects, the burden that this epidemic has caused on the medical system. Why don't we talk about that?
So as I've mentioned before, I like to call them as foodborne diseases.
Yeah.
Right. And those are the chronic diseases, which is consuming around 75% of our healthcare budget for this country. So around $2.3 trillion of our budget goes in managing chronic diseases, which are diabetes, hypertension, stroke, cancer. And these are all obesity, or I would call it foodborne diseases. So if you put on weight, it increases your insulin level, and it causes more deposition of glucose into called fat. and that causes diabetes. And diabetes, unfortunately, has a lot of complications. But besides causing damage to your eyes, it can cause kidney damage, can cause nerve damage. It obviously sort of restricts your lifestyle in many ways, really.
And we spoke with Dr. Ali that, diabetes is a silent killer. It breeds so many diseases unknowingly, and you may not even feel the symptoms, right? If in the beginning.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it may go on for many years before you start feeling the symptoms where sugar can go up, and or some physician detects it. Now, there's diabetes, and of course, there's heart disease. Heart disease is usually caused by two things. One is high blood pressure, and of course, cholesterol, which accumulates in your blood vessels. Now, the high blood pressure is formed because when you're obese, there is a hormone released by these fat cells, which causes increased amount of fluid volume. Your body volume increases. That when your heart has to work harder to pump blood forward. Secondly, it also increases your stress hormones, what we call as a sympathetic tone, which causing squeezing of your arteries. And again, that puts a lot of pressure on your heart to pump blood out. So the heart is now overactive. It's getting strained. And if you see the effects of it, of course, besides causing heart attacks, obese people have heart failure twice more than non-obese people. So it's caused a lot of heart damage. Then, of course, it causes stroke. Now, stroke is caused because of damage to the blood vessels, and the blood vessels are damaged because of increased animal protein and fat intake, which is saturated fat intake, which causes your plaque formation, and that can cause strokes also. Thirdly, cancer, which is our second biggest killer. There are 13 cancers related to obesity. And after smoking, obesity is the second most common cause of cancer, unfortunately. And that's the fact. Smoking comes first, then obesity comes second, and obesity comes from what we eat. Things like breast cancer, ovarian cancer, things like endometrial cancer or colon cancer. And one of the reasons is the animal protein that we have, which is your eggs, your meat, your dairy proteins. And as you know very well, it increases the insulin-like growth factor. And I think, Kalindi, you know more about it.
So yes, we spoke, even when we are talking about cancer, insulin-like growth factor, IGF-1, though the levels of which determines the levels of, ultimately it causes a signaling cascade, changing the levels of insulin. And so insulin has been associated with so many different conditions, correct, Dr. Kasubai? Starting from diabetes to, we can say blood pressure, right? Right. Let's talk about what happens? Why does these insulin levels go high, and how, with a diet, how do we control that so that we don't have excess adipose tissue, which is
right. Right. So before we go in that, I mean, just mention other things like arthritis. The more obese you are, you get more joint pain. So your increased amount of pressure on your hip joints, increased amount of knee joints. What happens with that? You decrease your mobility, you have pain, you're taking these painkillers, which can cause more damage to you than make you feel better. Your mobility decreases, you're having less exercises, and that makes you more obese. So overall, the effect of obesity is to make you more and more unhealthy and increase.
Something I wanted to add to it, what they say, for every pound you gain, you add 10 pounds to your joints, to your knees. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You're putting so much burden. Obesity puts the extra weight, puts so much burden on your joints. So eventually the wear and tear, you go through more knee replacement, hip replacement surgeries, right?
Right, absolutely. And the other thing is, because of all these chronic diseases, because of overweight and because of less amount of exercise and motion, what happens is your lifespan decreases. And compared to a normal weight, compared to a very obese person, your lifespan has, for an obese person, decreased by 13 years. That is a lot of life, 13 years if you're obese. And we want to actually reverse that. The other quick statistics I can give you is, in a middle-aged woman who is obese is 28 times more likely to get diabetes compared to a normal weight middle-aged woman. So it sort of destroys lives to a large extent, and it causes so much of injury to your body. So again, my question is, you love food, but does the food love you?
Yeah, yeah.
And in this case, it's very clear the food is not loving you if you have all this refined food, the animal protein, etc. And that's why we advocate very strongly for having vegan-like food or add plant-based food predominantly at the end. So,
Right. You briefly mentioned about the genetic component of obesity. There are certain disorders that can also cause obesity. And also there are certain hormonal disorders, right? We hear about a hypo or hyperthyroidism. Can you give us some, examples, or can you mention some what
so
happens in
it's
those?
so one of them, and we've talked already about insulin, right? Which increased insulin causes that's a huge hormone imbalance.
Right.
The second one is cortisol. Now, cortisol is a stress hormone, and because right now we're sleeping less because we're watching late night Amazon Prime and Netflix or our favorite shows, and we have reruns of these going on. While we're
Guilty.
watching the shows, we're also eating. We're also snacking on processed food. And processed food is basically high amount of sugar, high amount of salt, and high amount of fat. Now, this is food technology to make you like the food. Again,
Right.
the food does not like you because it makes you fat and obese. So there's lack of sleep. There's of course alcohol intake very late in the night, excess of that, going to parties and partying till very late. And if you go to a majority of parties these days, the food is served very late in the night. So
Right.
you have your drinks and initially your food is served at 10 to 11 o'clock. So there is hardly any time where you're not eating. So you get up in the morning, you're eating till very late at night. So your body never gets rest. And that's why you become more and more obese.
And again, this causes what we spoke before, the insulin, the sugar spikes,
Right.
at different times. So, your body, there is no regulation, which is like, a regular, which is, so it is like either you're eating at different times, you're eating at times where you should be resting, which is causing an extra burden on your body. So, Dr. Kasubhai, this whole, untimely eating, sleeping less, all this causes already much more burden to the body, who is already, fighting to sort of our sympathetic nervous system, right? We spoke about. It's already fighting to keep us in healthy or in that state, correct?
Right. So the other thing we're mentioning about also hypo and hypothyroidism, when your thyroid functions are under functioning because there's decreased amount of metabolism happening and you're putting more weight because you're not losing the energy. You're not using the energy, you're not losing the energy. The body is sort of, calming, it's calmed down too much really. So that also can increase weight. But again, the most common cause yet is what we eat. The other, that's the insulin, high insulin levels, high cortisol levels, high levels of hormone called which can increase hypertension, which can cause hypertension. These are the major causes of these side effects, I would say, or the chronic disease burden because of obesity out here.
And as we also mentioned earlier, that the food industry, right, it is the foods that they make, they know exactly what you like, what your body likes, right? It's not made to sort of give you satiety, right? It's supposed to make you crave more. It's an addiction. That's what they sort of market, and that's what they sell you. So in plant-based diet or whole food plant-based diet is something that will actually reverse this. The amount of the whole food with whole food plant-based diet, you're eating fiber, you're eating so much nutrition, which will actually give you more satiety. We are talking about satiety. We have signals. Our brain is constantly in communication with our gut, which is called our second nervous system, right, doctor?
Yes.
So that our second nervous system, the gut, signals our brain, sends signals that yes, I'm hungry, and then we seek food. But at the same time, there are signals going back from your brain and your gut telling them, okay, I'm full now, full stop, let's stop.
True.
And these are the signals we tend to lose or we don't tend to respond to when we are addicted by all this processed food.
Absolutely. So a quick example to give is about sugar, right? Now, sugar causes addiction, and the reason is it causes stimulation of the reward system in the reward pathway, I must say, brain, reward pathway in the brain, which causes release of dopamine.
Dopamine, right, right.
Dopamine is for pleasure, and you want more dopamine, so you have more sugar. So you have more sugar, you get more fat, and this whole sort of loop keeps going on.
Whole circle, right? It's just a vicious circle. And just to also tell our viewers, dopamine is one of the neurotransmitter or chemical in your brain, which is associated with pleasure experience with drugs of addiction too, right? The dopamine pathway, reward pathway.
Right.
So
you're right. It's similar to cocaine and heroin. So sugar,
exactly, cocaine, heroin,
is the same as addiction to cocaine and heroin, and we do not recognize that. We think sugar is good, it's sweets, it's something to celebrate. Yes, once in a while you can have it, once in a while you can celebrate it, but having on a daily basis and having multiple times a day, it's an addiction. And that recognition, that mindfulness, what we're eating, is very important to change our habits and become, a more sort
aware
of what we're eating.
How do we, what kind of foods? We discussed that whole food plant-based is the way to not only sort of manage or control, but it's also a way to prevent obesity, right? Prevent all the conditions we talk about, but especially obesity is somewhere this can work as a charm.
Absolutely. I mean, it has been proven again and again over years and years of research. Now, let me tell you, this plant-based nutrition is the only well-researched, more than 20 years of research behind us, showing evidence that it reverses obesity, it prevents obesity. So if you look at the long term, if you are vegan, you have less weight than anybody else, including a vegetarian. If you become a vegan, and in a year, you lose around 7% per year once you become a vegan until you come to your natural weight. So the evidence is very strong. Now, look at fruits. Now, fruits, everybody says has sugar inside it. But you compare a sugary beverage, which has 50% fructose by weight, 50% fructose by weight, compared to a peach, which has 1% fructose by weight. But what else do you get with peach? You get antioxidants like polyphenols, you get potassium, you get fiber, and
flavonoids.
A lot of antioxidants, a lot of good stuff, a lot of nutrition stuff. So having a peach, a whole peach, is a million times better than having a sugary drink. No question about it out here. So fruits actually, which you consider as to be sweet, they actually reverse diabetes. So more fruits you have, the less diabetic you're going to become. And again, here you have to be clear that it's not the fruit juice, it's the fruits that you should be eating. Fruit juices are just sugar. They get absorbed right away into your body. They do not have fiber. They do not have antioxidants.
So they don't fill you up. A whole fruit at any time will fill you up.
Exactly.
Versus any fruit juice, right?
Right. So, I mean, as we mentioned, basically plant-based food have the antioxidants like polyphenols, and they have fiber. So
most importantly, fiber. Yes.
Most importantly, absolutely fiber. And what does fiber do? Fiber slows the progressive food from your stomach to the intestines. That means less amount of insulin is secreted to take the sugar that may come out if the food is absorbed very rapidly. So less insulin, less amount of insulin, glucose get converted into fat, so you get less obese. So, and again, secondly, which you also mentioned before, it gives you fullness. You feel full very much earlier, and that fullness lasts for very long. So you don't feel like eating in between then. So you have less amount of snacks, less amount of things that make you happy with pleasure, like the dopamine release you get really. And of course, if you want to really reverse your obesity or even prevent you from getting obese, absolutely no refined sugar. So refined sugar is, for instance, white rice, white pasta, white bread. These have sugar that gets absorbed right away into your body. It has no good nutrients there. It's just plain sugar, plain simple carbohydrates. So if you have to have something, you have to have whole grains. Of course, you should be having legumes. You should be having vegetables, which has
complex carbohydrates, right?
Complex carbohydrates.
Go for complexity when it comes to carbohydrates.
Absolutely.
So
And listen, I mean, you should have absolutely no oil. But if you do have to put oil inside, have the monosaturated form of oil, which is usually extra virgin olive oil, or you can have avocado oil. Having canola, having sunflower, having soybean oil, that's not good. So try to cut down as much oil you can put down. Absolutely no animal protein. That means we're talking of meat, we're talking of chicken, we're talking of eggs, we're talking of dairy. Yeah, these all are injurious to your body. It causes insulin to go up, and more the insulin you have in the body, more the fat you're going to become. So these are the things you should stop having it. And of course, no processed food. Now, you go to a restaurant, and the restaurant food tastes yummy, no question about it. And nobody wants to stop you going to a restaurant. You should go once in a while and enjoy all the variety of food you get there. But you have to understand the way they keep the food for longer periods of time and make it taste better is by adding salt, sugar, and fat. Those are elements you do not want in your food. These are not natural food. Yes, the fat you get from avocado is much better than fat you get from animal food.
Right, or butter, right?
Butter, for instance, or anything that makes it feel tasty. So they use food technology. They have done experiments to find out what makes something feel better, taste better. And it's simple. It's a combination of sugar, salt, and fat. And neither of these three are good for you. In the simplest form, you can have sugar in a form of a fruit, or you can have sugar in a form of a vegetable, but please do not have refined sugar. Do not have just plain table sugars. The other thing I keep always telling everybody is, what is the best drink in the world? The best drink in the world is water.
Water.
Well,
Yes.
if you don't want to have water, you want to taste something else, there's coffee. Coffee is great. Add coffee. You want to add some milk inside, add soy milk, has all different almond milk, etc. But
Add oat milk. Lately oat milk has been
right.
sort of like, that has been a great replacer of the regular milk. It's the closest in taste, right?
Absolutely. It's also creamier and tastes very good. So you can add alternate milks to your coffee if you want to have it. If you have tea, have green tea. But please don't have sweetened teas. Do not have sweetened beverages. And I believe enjoy your alcohol once in a while, but daily drinking morning and night, etc., it's just a bad idea. So try to prevent excess use of alcohol also, because that will also has pure sugar. And again, if you preferably want to have alcohol, it's great to have it during lunchtime, not in the nighttime, because it prevents you from getting good sleep. And if you don't get good sleep, your cortisol level goes up and you get obese. So a lot of things that go into not becoming obese, and you just have to be mindful of what you need to do, what you need to think before you eat. And it's actually very simple. And the simplest thing is what you eat, and we've told you what you should eat and when you eat. And I would like to talk about intermittent fasting, but I want your opinion now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kasubai, for an amazing informational session. The things I'm just going to highlight what we focused on today: whole food plant-based diet, which is an amazing tool in especially reversing, managing this condition, obesity. Something that we discussed: fill up on fiber, fill up on whole grains, have beans in your pantry, have plenty of vegetables and fruits around, and munch on them. When it comes to carbohydrates, we say no refined sugar. So go for complex carbohydrates. Eat your greens. Hydrate with good old H2O. Water should be your drink. Carry around with you all day, every day, anywhere. Another most important aspect: physical activity. Engage yourself in any physical activity, from light walking to running to yoga, whatever you can do, 25 to 30 minutes a day. And another thing we focused on is sleep. Sleep is extremely important to regulate so many different bodily functions. So get enough sleep and try to manage the stress level in your life. Healthy way, vegan way. Let's live it up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Kasubai.
Thank you.